Today, the Gone Fishing crew travels to Lake of the Woods in northwestern Ontario. Your hosts, Bob Kirkpatrick and T.J. Schwenke, fish for smallmouth bass in these scenic Canadian Shield lakes. So stay with us, and we'll be right back with some fun fishing.
Hi, I'm T.J. Schwenke.
And I'm Bob Kirkpatrick. Welcome to Gone Fishing. Today we're on Lake of the Woods in Clearwater Bay near the town of Kenora, Ontario. We're going to be fishing for smallmouth bass.
As you can see, the weather's not that great, so we're going to be showing you a few different techniques today. We're going to be casting crankbaits, and we're going to be using these soft plastic stick baits. So stay tuned. I'm sure we're going to have some great action today.
There's one, TJ.
Oh, looks like a good one. All right.
What we've done here, we've tried some aggressive presentations to start with. We were casting buzz baits and small crankbaits up along the edge of the reeds, and we had a couple of follows, but they just weren't taking too well. TJ got one earlier. Wow, there. So I put on a sluggo. It's a little slower presentation. What I've been doing is just cast it up into the weeds, let it fall down in between the pencil reeds, and work it back real slow.
That's a really good point. Use aggressive presentations to find your fish, but once you find fish, especially schooling fish, which pass out a little bit, maybe not as much as walleye and things, but quite often there will be more on a piece of structure. If your aggressive presentation doesn't take anymore, slow down your presentation and try something else and maybe pick up a couple more less active fish. I know that's a really top tournament technique, is locating those fish and then picking up all you can out of there.
Now look, I just noticed on this fish, he's got one eye that's covered right over. He's blind in one eye.
Oh,
I don't know if that was a previous injury, if he just was born that way, but he obviously survived quite well. He's a nice, healthy, big fish.
Yeah, I mean, that's a mature fish, and for to live that long shows how effective a predator they are.
The other eye looks just fine there. Oh, there's sure a nice dark color in here.
Yeah, these Lake of the Woods fish are gorgeous.
Put up quite a scrap. Well, I'm going to get him back in.
All right.
There's one, TJ.
Whoa! All right, that looks like a good one, Bob.
Boy, he smacked that.
Oh! Big shooty.
Boy, he hit that hard.
Once they get airborne, that's the end of them.
Right up tight to those rocks in there. Just a little bit of broken rock off that sharp rock face there, and I had 2 hits in there. A lot of times if you cast back to where you had a hit the first time, they'll take it the second time.
Especially bass when they're in the highly aggressive nature like they are right now. That one sure smacked it, Bob.
What do you got on there?
Got a little crankbait on here, and looks like a nice smallmouth. This weather's kind of been in a quandary here the last few days. It's been really raining, and we're talking about getting down into the low 30s Fahrenheit tonight. So it's cold front moving in, and bass are probably one of the most affected. So we're just kind of searching for them right now. I got a really nice one here. Keep that crankbait out of my hand. There's so bronze in here. This water is really bog stained.
Get them?
No, it's not like landing walleyes at all.
I'm going to move this out of the rocks too. Well, that's a nice fish.
Yeah. See, here's where they get their name from. Bronze back is all the color through there, and it comes out of this bog stained waters. If you get some of the clearer type water, they're not nearly as colorful. So we're on Lake of the Woods here in Ontario, just out of Kenora, Clearwater Bay. And this is probably one of the most popular spots for bass fishing in the province. I'm going to have to get some pliers for him. Thank you. Let's get this hook out of here. Man, it here is smack that.
You're using a little crankbait. I've been using a sluggo, and what we're doing right now is just trying to find some active fish. We've been drifting them down the shoreline, and there's a bunch of pencil reeds right along the edge of the shore. It's all rock. We've been casting right into the reeds and working it back real slow. Now, I've had a couple of follows. You better get that guy back in the water.
Yeah, these bass are just coming off the spawn now, so they're still located close to the spawning areas, but it seems to have a structure adjacent to them. So,
now, using techniques like this is real visual. They come right out of the water after. I had one come right out of the water, through the hook. It's really exciting, it gets me going. I've never fished smallmouth before, and I'm looking forward to some good action.
Alrighty, there he goes. Let's get back and see if we can get another one in there.
Still got that one on that crankbait too.
They do, yeah. These bass are really tight into shore, but it's not just any shoreline structure that we're catching them on. Seems anywhere there's kind of scattered rocks on a slow tapering shoreline, or anywhere that the pencil reeds kind of come close to the rock is where we're catching them.
Now we also picked up a couple where there's trees laying down in the water right along, must be the shadier side of the trees or the sheltered side, and as well as in behind some of these big rocks.
He ate the whole thing, I'm telling you. Try or something? You can get, oh, here it comes. Now there is both largemouth and smallmouth in Lake of the Woods, but smallmouth are definitely the more abundant, and that's what this is, of course. We were fishing some lily pads and heavier weeds earlier today and just had one boil, so I'm just going to give this one back to you. And
whoa.
The really nice thing about Lake of the Woods, though, even if the wind's blowing, there's always a place where you can get in, and it's calm. I always get out of the wind.
Well, I think my biggest problem here would be trying to find my way back to where I started, but I noticed there's a lot of markers out there with numbers on them, and you can get maps of the lake that show you where all the markers are and what numbers are, and so you can pretty well find your way around. But how many islands are supposed to be in this system?
Thousands.
Thousands of islands.
It's unbelievable. Like you say, they do have a really good navigation system here with all the numbered markers, and they do have excellent maps, so it's just a matter of being careful.
Sure is pretty scenery around here anyway, all the rocks and trees, and there's about any kind of structure or fishing or weed beds that you'd want to find are in here somewhere if you keep looking.
This one isn't that big, but he's sure one of the most spectacular ones we've had. He's come out of the water about 5 times.
There he goes again.
Yeah, he's full of fight. I'm using this crankbait with rattles in it. You can probably hear him rattling down there. And bass have, actually they're just a feeding machine. All their senses are just unbelievably in tune to feeding. And how they sense these rattles is what's called the lateral line. And
your way here.
It just runs right down here on them. And it actually picks up vibration in the water. And so that's what those rattles do, is they send out a vibration that's supposed to imitate a wounded bait fish or a bait fish in distress. They key in on that, and they have incredible vision and as well as smell and taste. So these are probably one of the highest developed feeders there is. So when they're not aggressive, it takes a lot to fool them, but when they're on, these rattling baits and things like that will get their attention. They'll just run over there, see it, and smack it, which he did. So
now it's kind of strange. We're using 2 different types of baits. I'm using a Berkeley Power Slug, which is a real slow presentation, and TJ is in front of me with this faster presentation crankbait.
Now what's happening is I cast first, I pick up any aggressive fish that are there, and as Bob comes through behind me with a little more subtle presentation, he's picked up any fish that aren't aggressive enough to hit this. So it's a very effective way to cover, we're still covering the water fairly quickly, but we're giving them both options if they want aggressive or kind of more subtle presentation. And I think we're picking up most of the fish along here.
And when they do hit, they sure hit hard.
Oh, unreal.
Every one of them's come right out of the water. Ooh. He smacked that. I don't know if these fish are keying in on the smell of this bait or not, TJ.
Well, bass do have one of the keenest olfactory senses of any of the fish, as well as they can taste baits without actually taking them in their mouth. They have external taste receptors.
Now these Berkeley Power Slugs that we're using, Berkeley makes a whole line of power baits, and what they are is they're a scent-impregnated rubber bait. And when you first open up a package, you can really smell them. They smell quite rank, actually. But the bass, or the fish here, seem to like them now. As I mentioned, they make a whole variety of different power baits. They make power tubes, power lizards, power leeches for walleye fishing, for bass fishing, just about anything. Any extra advantage you can use is a good idea to do so. And it also helps cover up some of the human scent as well.
Yeah, now with the slower presentation we're using here, those bass will often come up and sit there and actually bump it. Sometimes they're feeling little bumps but not catch them, and what they're actually doing is just tasting it, or they may be up there following that scent trail. So in cases when they are a little slower, make sure you do have good tasting and good smelling baits.
Well, I can sure get hooked on this bass fishing in a hurry. This is great.
Lake of the Woods is located in northwestern Ontario and is one of the largest bodies of water in the region. It's a typical Canadian Shield lake with fast-breaking rock shorelines and a multitude of islands, reefs, and bays. Few are the days when anglers cannot find a sheltered spot to hide from the wind. Lake of the Woods is a weekender's paradise, and luxurious cabins can be found dotted all along its irregular shoreline. Residents can often be seen out enjoying a day of pleasure boating or a host of other water-related activities. But it's the fishing that attracts most visitors to Lake of the Woods. There are over 20 species of fish found in these cool, clear waters, with smallmouth bass being one of the most sought after. Seldom do anglers go home disappointed, as these scrappy little fighters are usually eager to take a lure. Visitors traveling to Lake of the Woods can find accommodation in the many lodges and camps right on the lake, or in the town of Kenora, Ontario. Either way, you're never far from the water or the excellent angling opportunities that abound.
There's one, TJ. Jeez, did he smack that? I'm having a little trouble with this setting the hook so hard on these things. I'm used to fishing walleye where you got to give them a little line, give them a little line. I admit, you got one too?
Oh yeah.
Well, this guy was down in the weeds. Yeah, that's what I find the hardest thing, to try and set the hook hard on these. You got to drive that hook through this rubber worm and into the fish's mouth.
Now I've always been kind of teased about my hook sets on the walleye circuit, but it kind of fit right in for this. This is a good fish.
Well, never fishing bass before. I've been having a little trouble with that. Now I'm having a little trouble trying to whip this guy, but I'll get him.
Some wrapping nail through the weeds.
It's a good fish.
That's why you have to use this heavier line on these fish. It's not because they're big or anything, it's just because this is what they do to you.
There must be a trick to
lipping them.
A trick to lipping them. There, got him. All right.
Look at this one.
This guy was down in there pretty good too. Now, when you can catch fish like this, wow, those are great. That was worth the trip right there, TJ.
Oh, no kidding. Now, if you're not sure, Kenora is just about 100 kilometers east of the Manitoba border, just on the Trans-Canada Highway. And Lake of the Woods lies right along it. Now, we're fishing out of Clearwater Bay today, which is one of the most popular areas here. But I know a lot of people fish out of Kenora and even further east, so this whole Lake of the Woods is an incredible bass fishery. So,
we have that great bass tournament here, the Kenora Bass, that's on in August every year. You know, I wonder if we shouldn't come in and enter that tournament. If we can catch fish like this, I know we'll do okay.
we have a well full of these. I think you'd be happy to.
Well, I'd like to get a couple of pictures of these before we let them go.
Alrighty, let's do that. Alright, let's get them back in the water.
Oh, there he goes. That looks like another good one, TJ.
Felt a lot heavier. Oh, I thought I was into a really big one when it hit. That is a nice bass.
Now what we've been doing is just moving from point to point and checking out these areas. Seems like the areas with a lot of scattered rock, broken up rock, are where we're getting the best action from. Well, that's another nice looking fish.
That is a good bass. Oh yeah, got those hooks all the way in there. It was a little hard to lip them. Bass kind of got a little natural handle on their lip here, but I want to keep them out of the way, all those sharp hooks.
Now it's pretty important to put these big fish back in. It's okay, they're great fun, but it's big fish like this that will carry on the species and make sure that there's good fishing here for years to come. So we're going to put all these fish back in today. Got to watch here, there's some awful big rocks.
Yeah, that's a nice.
That's a beautiful fish.
That. This is some of the fastest bass action I've ever had.
Seems like when we move to a spot, first couple casts is when we get a few hits, and then it'll die off. We just move to another spot. We went back to one spot where we hooked up with a big fish and it got off. Give it about a half-hour rest, came back and took another swipe at lure. But we're going to go back one more time before this stays over.
Yeah.
That's a big fish in there.
I'm going to get this one back. Okay, it is really important that we get these big fish back, so we'll let this one go. What a fight.
We're on the deck at Sun Valley Lodge here. We had a great day out in the lake, and a lot of thanks to Mark Urbanchik who helped us out. He's going to show us a little bit about how to rig some of the equipment we use today. Mark fished the pro bass circuit in Ontario a few years ago, and he sure was a great help here on Lake of the Woods.
Well, probably one of the hottest baits to come on the market the last few years has been the sluggo. In this instance, we've been using the Berkeley Power Bait, which is a scent-enhanced version of the sluggo. They're fairly simple to rig and use, and they're deadly on both largemouth and smallmouth bass. The proper way to hook one of these is I like to use a straight shank worm hook on them. And you hook it through the top of the slug, bring it through just about 1/4 of an inch out the other side, and slide the whole hook down through the sluggle so that the eye is out. And when you slip the hook around, the offset part of the shank should be sticking out of the sluggle. And your point comes through. On these Berkeley power slugs, they have a little sleeve inside that makes it weedless as compared to other versions of the same bait. And when the hook comes through, that slug should hang straight up and down. If you have any bend in it, you have to move your hook up a bit because it deters from the action on it. But when it hangs straight up and down, that acts just like a soft plastic jerk bait in the water, and it's irresistible to big hogs.
So we're just casting these soft plastic stick baits here right up close to shore and just working them back almost at a snail's pace.
Now, sometimes these fish are pretty aggressive and you can work them back a lot faster and it looks like a wounded bait fish or something in the water, but we've had better luck just giving them a couple twitches and let them settle almost to the bottom. Couple twitches. Now, most of the hits I've had is when it's on the fall.
Yeah, now it's kind of neat when you feel the hit. Sometimes you'll feel an actual tick, and other times there'll just be some weight there, and you want to drop to him just for a second. You don't want to let him eat it for a long time. When bass feed, they inhale pretty hard, and even though these baits are 6 inches long, they can inhale that whole thing pretty quickly.
And when you do get a hit, you have to set the hook hard, and that's where I've been having the trouble. I'm too used to fishing for walleye and a lot of tender biting fish that you got to give them lots of line and lots of time. These you have to slap them pretty hard or you won't drive that hook through the rubber worm and into their, they've got a pretty hard roof of their mouth, and it takes quite a lot of pressure to drive that hook in.
The thing is, we're using medium or medium heavy action rods here and fairly stout line, and that's the reason for it, is to get that hook driven home. Now, these bass are really tight to shore, it seems, today. And we've caught some nice bass out of here. It seems most of the bass we've been catching about 2.5 pounds, and that's good fish anywhere you go.
I tried a couple of different colors of baits, and it seems like the dark ones, the real dark color baits are producing a little bit more. These baits that we have on have got a little chartreuse tip on the tail. I don't know if that's helping or not. I know you caught some earlier on one that had sparkle scales, and I did have a few bites on a white colored one, but this dark colors, the dark purples or the blacks, seem to be working a little bit better, and that may be relating to whatever forage they're eating.
Now, I've usually found that the case with bass is anytime you're using a little more subtle presentation like worming, jigs, or these stick baits, the darker colors do seem to work better. But when you're running the crankbaits, for some reason they really key in on the brighter colors. And I know I've been using a white crankbait today, and they were really going after it as well. So it seems the blacks, the blues, purples, motor oil, colors like that really work good for bass.
Now, also, once we work these baits out a little ways from shore and get off where the broken rock are, it doesn't seem that we're getting any hits very far out from shore.
So it's just a matter, once you think you're out past where the bass are going to be, just reel it in quick. There's no sense spending a lot of unproductive time.
Anytime we have done that, it's been a pike that hits when you get out into the weeds.
We'd seen this one big bass. We had him rise quite a few times, and I actually had him hit a crankbait. And we've been back there 3 or 4 times today, and last time we were in there, Bob hooked into a fish and thought we had him on, but it turned out to be about a 4 or 5 pound pike, but it sure had us excited for a minute.
You can see some dark pockets in there. There is a few weeds along shore and some rocks with a little bit of overhang. And there's another area that we've been having some luck in, right along the edge of the weeds and the edge of the steeper rocks, where, I don't know, I guess they get in the shady areas in there.
Yeah, they're an ambush feeder. And what they'll do is they'll hide under cover, and anything that swims by, they'll just reach out and grab it as quick as it comes by. Now, bass don't actually bite their bait. They're much like a walleye. They actually inhale water. And the smallmouth don't have the big mouth that the largemouth do, but still a fair opening, and they can inhale large water volumes and move something like a leech or a crayfish from a long distance away, and they just expel all the excess water out their gills and keep whatever they're eating right in their mouth.
Oh, we're caught up on a weed. Now, it's one thing when you're fishing these baits, if you do catch up on a weed or a little bit of a snag, you got to bring in your bait and check it and make sure that everything is still lined up. This power slug has got to hang straight or it just doesn't have the proper action. And if you catch it on a weed and it pulls the rubber back like this, it'll spin through the water and just doesn't have the effectiveness that it does when it's set up properly. So you want to make sure it's hanging nice and straight like that. With this little sleeve in the bottom here, you run the point of the hook through there and it makes it quite weedless. So you can drag it over quite a few weeds, but every once in a while one will catch up.
And these baits are fairly new to the fishing world, and by no means is their use limited to bass.
Oh, we've caught a lot of big pike on them earlier, and that is fun. That's a real visual presentation.
Yeah, like last year, Bob and I were up in northern Saskatchewan. You got, what, about a 20-pound pike on one?
20-pound pike, and it's just great when you cast these things up into the weeds and let them fall down into the pockets of cabbage weed. It's some great action.
And I know I've caught walleye, lake trout on them, so I don't really know what they represent. They kind of look like a rubber stick in the water, but fish really get turned on by them. And I know that time we were pike fishing, it was the same thing. The pike weren't really active. But if you just leave that bait fluttering in front of their face, they'd eat it. Oh my goodness! That was pretty crazy. Hey, that's a nice fish. We're using bait casters here with fairly heavy action rods. Whoa. And the reason for that is these bass are just tight to shore.
Wow, this is a nice fish.
Yeah. And so we have to place our whatever lure we're using right on the shore, and the only way you can precisely do that is with a bait caster.
You know, I could get used to this.
Oh. Yeah, that's got to be a 3-pounder. That's a good bass. Yeah, we're using about 10 to 15-pound test line here. Some of the bass are up in the cover. Wow. It's the only way you can pull them out. Oh, that's gorgeous.
Well, I've been bass fishing for one day, and I love it. This is great. I can see how a guy can get addicted to this.
I don't know, when you hit him, he must have come 2 feet under the water to start.
Wow, now that's a nice fish.
That's a good bass, yeah.
Wow, what a way to end the day. We sure had a lot of fun here at Lake of the Woods. We'd like to thank Hugh Smith at Sun Valley Lodge.
We'd also like to thank Mark Urbancic for helping us with the pro tips section, and we'd like to thank Jim Hislop for running the camera boat for us and showing us around the lake. Be sure and join us next time on Gone Fishing.